welcome to today's episode on the Be Louder from the Bottom Up podcast, where we're going to dive into something that's very critical on today. This critical implication of the World Health Organization pandemic treaty. From my understanding, just doing a little brief research, if you will, this proposed international agreement is spearheaded by WHO and is aimed to unify a global response to future pandemics. And so to help us unpack this issue, we have a very, very special guest, Ms. Reggie Littlejohn. She is the founder and president of the Women's Rights Without Frontiers, and is an international coalition that opposes forced abortion and sexual slavery in China. And she's also the co-founder of Sovereignty Coalition and the president of Anti-Globalist International. And so we're just very grateful for Ms. Littlejohn taking time out of her day to present this very crucial information to us. So, Ms. Littlejohn, I welcome you. You have the floor.
Thank you so very much, Pastor Latasha. I really appreciate being here, and I appreciate your audience. And so you mentioned the pandemic treaty and the official rationale for it being, we need to be ready for the next pandemic and the world needs to have a more coordinated response. But actually, this new pandemic treaty and the international health regulation amendments, the proposed amendments, which are coming up for a vote on May 27th of this year, May 27th to June 1st is the meeting of the World Health Assembly. There are things hiding in those agreements that would be extremely damaging to our national sovereignty and our personal medical freedom. And they are part of a much larger picture, which I call the globalist coup, and also the digital gulag. So I'd like to take a step back and give you the 30,000-foot view of what I regard as being the way that the globalists are basically trying to take over. But for people who think that this is a conspiracy theory, what I've done is I've pulled together a series of videos and charts where the globalists themselves are saying what their plans are. And you decide for yourself. Don't take my word for it. You decide for yourself. Is this true or is it a conspiracy theory? Okay. So the first thing I would like to do is, we have to have the Anti-Globalist Alliance image. This, I'm the founder and president of this new organization called, Anti-Globalist International. And you can see that we have Joan of Arc as our patron saint, because she was a brilliant military strategist, a fierce warrior, but she always kept her eyes on God, and she was fighting for her country. She was fighting for France, which had been invaded by England. So she's like the original patriot. But this is a spiritual battle. This is not just a physical battle. And I feel like she symbolizes that. So the first thing I would like to do is play a clip of a part of a speech by a man named Budi Sadikin. He is from the B20 nations. And he will explain why, in his opinion, we need vaccine passports, basically.
Digital health certificate acknowledged by WHO if you have been vaccinated or tested properly, then you can move around. So for the next pandemic, instead of stopping the movement of the people 100%, which clogged the economy globally, you can still provide some movement of the people. Indonesia has achieved, G20 country has agreed to have this digital certificate using WHO standard, and we will submit into the next World Health Assembly in Geneva as the revision to international health regulation. So hopefully for the next pandemic, we can still see some movement of the people, some movement of the goods, and movement of the economy.
So why do we care what the B20 says? We care what the B20 says because the Biden White House cares what the B20 says. and they put their report from that session, from that meeting, on the White House website. So what Mr. Sadakin is saying is that we need digital health certificates to track people's vaccination status so that people who are vaccinated can move freely. And what that means also is that people who are not vaccinated cannot move freely. So this is the beginning of totalitarian control. And it's these vaccine, these digital IDs, digital health IDs, that serve as the pretext for the full-on digital ID, which we'll get into later, but it's a tool of mass surveillance and totalitarian control. So if you understand the motives of this, as they say, follow the money. So I'd like to play now a 1-minute clip of an interview of Bill Gates a couple years ago at the World Economic Forum.
We're here today with Bill Gates. A lot to talk about what he's been working on. And thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to talk to you about your approach to vaccinations. You wrote something recently, and like you always do, you kind of looked at the problem from a scientific and business perspective on things. You've invested $10 billion in vaccinations over the last 2 decades, and you figured out the return on investment for that. And it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
We see a phenomenal track record. It's been $100 billion overall that the world's put in. Our foundation is a bit more than $10 billion, but we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else. The human benefit in millions of lives saved. So, we're here with a pretty strong message that although all these other issues are very important, let's not forget about the great success in global health and maintaining that commitment.
All right. So according to Bill Gates, who has invested $10 billion in vaccines, he got a 20-to-1 return on investment for that. That's incredible. So if he invested 10, he made 20 billion, and then minus the 10, that's 19 billion, just him. And that was only 10% of of what the world invested in vaccines. So that would have been a profit of 190 billion just from vaccines. So you wonder how these big pharma, these vaccine manufacturers have money to basically buy everybody off. They do. That's where they get it. But why do we care? Companies are profitable. That's great. Well, the reason that we care is because the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then also Gavi, which is another vaccine-related nonprofit, so-called pseudo nonprofit, they're major funders of the World Health Organization. See, the World Health Organization used to be this little innocent organization that was just funded by countries, and they cared about things like sanitation and polio. But lately, they have become more and more funded by special interests, such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Big Pharma, that would stand to make a huge profit from vaccines. And so that's called a conflict of interest. It should not be a situation where the World Health Organization, which is supposed to give us an unbiased opinion about whether or not we should be vaccinated, that their key funders would profit hugely if everybody got vaccinated. So that's a problem. So the next clip I would like to play is, if you think that these digital IDs are a thing of the future, they're actually being rolled out right now. So let's get the this is a clip of Dr. but not a medical doctor, Tedros Ghebreyesus, talking about the fact that they are rolling out these digital IDs right now as we speak.
While the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic is now over, investments in digital infrastructure remain an important resource for health systems and for economies and societies at large. Like many countries, the European Union made significant investments in COVID-19 certificates to help people move around as safely as possible during the pandemic. The European Union's certification system was used by all 27 EU member states and more than 50 other countries. Building on the success of the EU system, WHO is proud today to launch the Global Digital Health Certification Network. So thank you so much to European Union for the excellent certification system that you have transferred to us, and we have the chance to build on it. WHO will begin operations of the network today with the existing COVID-19 certificate as a global public good. Soon after, we will expand this infrastructure by incorporating other use, such as a digitized international certificate of vaccination, routine immunization cards, and international patient summaries.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this digital ID is not a thing of the future. That video is a number of months old. It's already being rolled out worldwide by the WHO and the European Union together. So very shortly, we're going to have digital IDs, and they're actually very, very concerning. So I'd like to just put up the digital ID image from the World Economic Forum. It's a chart. And so that you will see, they say that the reason for these digital IDs is to track people's health status, just to make sure that if there's an outbreak, that they know about it soon, and then to track people's vaccination status. So it's a way of forcing people to be vaccinated, because if you're not, they can punish you. And this is how it would work. Okay. So if you see this chart about digital identity, digital IDs, you will see that it's not just about health at all. Health is the pretext. Health is the way that they get people to accept it. Okay. If you want to have access to all these different areas, you're going to have a digital ID. So you have to have a digital ID to access healthcare and medical treatment, to open bank accounts, to carry out online financial transactions, to travel, even on a bus, to shop online, to access social media platforms, to pay your taxes, to vote, and collect benefits like Medicare and Social Security. So establishing a mandatory digital ID in the United States would be extremely dangerous. It's a tool of mass surveillance and totalitarian control that could result in a system similar to the China social credit system. So as Pastor Latasha mentioned in the very beginning, I started out as the president, and I'm still the president of Women's Rights Without Frontiers. We stopped forced abortion in China. And it was because of seeing how the Chinese Communist Party exerted its totalitarian control, I became very concerned that would come to the United States through these digital IDs. So you can take the chart down now, if you would, please. Because what they can do is they're going to be tracking everything that we do. In China, well, they have facial recognition, real-time geolocation, so they know what you look like, they know where you are, and then they're tracking your social media posts, your internet search history, your internet spending history. It's connected to your bank cards, your credit cards, your bank accounts, and your credit cards, your medical history, your criminal history if you have one. And so what they do is they put all the information they have together to give you a social credit score. And that score determines how much freedom you have. So if you have a high score, in other words, if you never make waves, you get all your vaccinations, you never criticize the government, you're just like a little sheep, then you can have a high score and they'll give you freedom because they know that they can control you. But if you if you question them, if you question authority, if you decide that it's not right for you to get a vaccine, or if you decide that you're questioning it and you're going to post something on social media, your score can plummet, and they can do things like you can lose your job. Your kid will not be able to go to a good school. You will not be able to borrow money, so you won't be able to buy a house or start a business. And if you keep it up, they will sever you from your credit cards and your bank account. So just imagine how far you can get in life if you have no access to money, right? And if you keep it up even beyond that, they'll just disappear you in China. And these digital IDs that they're rolling out all over the world have the potential to create the same platform as the China social credit system and turn all of us into. It's a way of establishing a biotech surveillance police state, and we need to stop it. And it's just rolling out, and the reason it's rolling out is because people don't know about it. So I mean, I would really urge everybody to share out this interview. So next, I would like to just play a 3-minute video about the digital ID wallet. So this is actually kind of an advertisement from a company that makes these digital IDs about how they would be used. But just imagine, sort of how this digital ID is every aspect of this young woman's life. And if she decided to go against the grain, against the government, if she disagreed, what could happen to her?
Hello everyone, meet Lucy, student in psychology, and me, her digital ID wallet issued by the government to offer a wide range of identity services. In fact, I'm a handy way of proving and protecting her identity both online and face-to-face. Let's have a closer look at what I can do. I can help governments to better communicate with citizens. Right now, I'm reminding Lucy of the appointment she needs to schedule for her mandatory vaccination. Time to go to her exam. Lucy is a bit stressed out. I'm here to make it easy for her to prove she is the right candidate, with a quick and secure connection between her phone and the examiner's. Exam passed successfully. Quick stop at the doctor's before celebrating, and no time to lose. On the way, Lucy uses me to declare her passport lost. She needs it for her upcoming road trip. No issue. She can request an emergency digital passport without having to go to the authority office. I make official admin a lot smoother. And that's not all. I can also help Lucy request a birth certificate, pay her taxes, or prove who she is when onboarding to new services, such as opening a bank account. I allow Lucy to certify her healthcare coverage entitlement. She's able to decide whether to authorize the doctor to access her medical records or not, ensuring her control over her personal data. Lucy needs one more thing before being all set for her trip to Australia: renting a car. I help her share her driver's license credentials online, so that she doesn't have to wait hours in a queue to collect the car when she gets to Brisbane. The rental company benefits from secure and accurate information, and Lucy from a smooth experience. Lucy's friends are waiting for her inside the bar. To allow her to get in, I simply generate a QR code that proves Lucy is old enough, so she doesn't have to share all her ID details with the bar staff. So yes, I'm Lucy's best companion. I protect her identity and official credentials wherever she goes. I provide secured access to public and private services and allow her to have full control over her data privacy. In other words, I give the right access to the right data to the right person. I am also trusted by governments to best support countries' digital transformation, fight against ID fraud, and deliver smooth public services. I am the Thales Digital ID Wallet.
Wow, Ms. Littlejohn, that is very diabolical, very extraordinary. But go ahead. Wow. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, so this digital ID says that it's her best companion, but let's, and it was a great way for the government to tell her, remind her of her mandatory vaccine. So let's say she had refused to take that mandatory vaccine. Okay. Do you think that she could have then gotten a ride to her exam, and that she could have opened the bank account and gotten into the bar? Do you think that they would let her into the bar? The digital ID would say, no, don't let her in. She's not vaccinated. She would not have been able to get on the plane for her little road trip to Australia. So this digital ID would turn from her best companion to her worst enemy if she didn't completely comply. I feel sorry for Lucy, the psychology student. I mean, she's a complete sheep. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly. And then I noticed that in the video, the first thing they said that the digital ID can do is make sure she got her vaccine.
That's right. Her mandatory vaccine.
Mandatory vaccine. That's the first thing that
That's right.
And then the rest, like you said, depending on if she does that, if she has any of those other freedoms.
Pastor Latasha, when I first heard this, that these vaccine passports, which they don't call them that anymore, they just call them digital IDs, that they could serve as the platforms for the China social credit system. I'm not a tech person, so I decided to check with some really heavy duty and brilliant tech people about whether this is true. And I said, is it actually true that the vaccine passport could serve as the platform for the China social credit system? I asked a liberal and a conservative. The conservative said, yes, it's true, and so we have to stop it because we'll lose our freedom. And the liberal said, yes, it's true, so it's a good idea because it'll force everyone to be vaccinated. All right? So that's when I decided I needed to take on this issue. And so listen, though, you've got this digital ID, which is bad enough because they can sever you from your credit cards and your bank accounts through the digital ID. But there's also something called central bank digital currencies, and when you combine the two of those, then we're really, really in trouble. So what I'd like to do is now play the video of Augustine Carstens, who is one of the heads of the Bank of International Settlements. If people don't know what the Bank of International Settlements is, it's like the global. It's like the most evil organization you've never heard of. Okay, it's the global bank. It's the central bank of all the central banks. So that when there are transactions between nations, they're settled by the Bank of International Settlements. So let's listen to Mr. Augustine Carstens talking about the truth. He said the quiet part out loud about what central bank digital currencies really are.
We tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
So these central bank digital currencies are being rolled out worldwide. Most countries in the world have them in development or actually have rolled them out. And what he said, Mr. Augustine Carstens said the quiet part out loud, which is that the big beauty of these central bank digital currencies, for if you want to establish a totalitarian regime, is that they are programmable. They are controllable. He says that they have absolute control on how they are going to be spent. So what does that mean? That means that and also if you have a cashless society, so that you can't substitute cash, you can only buy something with a central bank digital currency. That means that let's say you have your central bank currency digital currency card, CBDC card, similar to a credit card, and you want to buy something at the store. Okay, the government is going to know where you are, what you're trying to buy, who you're trying to buy it from, and they will have the ability to approve or disapprove that transaction. So if you are Lucy of the previous video and decided not to get your mandatory vaccine that morning, then she might find that she actually can't rent that car that she was renting, in Australia. It'll just be turned off. It's like, get your vaccine, you can rent the car. Um, so and it can also prevent you from doing all the different things that you need a digital ID to do, you know. So these central bank digital currencies, they can be programmable to make to turn off in any circumstance. Climate change, for example. Let's say that they decide that they are going to limit all of us to one flight a year because flights, use up too much gas. And let's say that you go to your daughter's wedding, you fly to your daughter's wedding, and then let's say that a loved one dies. They could just say you can't, you can't fly to your loved one's funeral because you already flew to your daughter's wedding. Or they could say you can fly to your loved one's funeral if you pay the carbon tax. So what does that mean? That means that the rich people are going to be able to fly around as much as they want, and the people who are not rich are not going to be able to fly because they can't afford the carbon tax. It's going to establish like a two-tier society. They can make it so that let's say that you disobey, you don't get your vaccine, and they want you quarantined in your home. They can make it so that you can't use that central bank digital currency outside of your home. You can only use it in your home, on your computer, nowhere else. I mean, it's a tool of totalitarian control. So it's like there's these two jaws. There's the digital ID, which tracks everything you're doing, and then there's a central bank digital currency, which is the enforcement mechanism of turning you off and separating you from your money if you step out of line. And between the two of them, they'll just snap shut. And we need to raise the alarm before these snap shut. Because once they snap shut, there will be no more dissent. Because if you try to dissent, they'll just shut you down. They'll shut you off of your digital ID, so you can't travel, you can't access your money. And the same thing with the central bank digital currency. They'll program it so you can't use it. So I want to put on. I want to talk a little bit now about One Health. So let's put the One Health image up, please. Okay, so you see this colorful image. This is typical of the globalist images. They always make them look like something that you could imagine on your kindergartner's wall, because that makes it seem, so innocent, and it's not innocent. So One Health is like a made-up concept that says that human health is connected to animal health, is connected to the environment. Okay, I grant that there are connections between those, but what it does is it establishes an equivalency between human health and animal health and the environment. And by the way, One Health is in the new pandemic treaty. I'll talk about that later. So what this means is like health equity. And so there was an article that came out in the Lancet, very prestigious medical journal, saying that all life is equal and of equal concern. So what does that mean? It means that your life, my life, the lives of our children, the lives of our parents, the lives of our loved ones are equal and of equal concern to the life, for example, of a cockroach or a rat or a plant. And so it's about balancing all of these interests, meaning that human beings are not going to come out on top. Our interests need to be balanced against the interests of the cockroach. And so it's also it's a pretext to surveil everything. Like if the World Health Organization has control over human health, animal health, and the environment, that means they get to surveil and control basically every aspect of life on Earth. So this is not just an innocent little idea. And then I also wanted to talk about global complex global shocks. So there's an image from the United Nations complex global shocks. If you could put it up. There it is. Okay. So as you know, in just a few days, the World Health Organization is going to be voting on the pandemic treaty and the amendments to the international health regulations. But in September, not to be left out, the United Nations is going to be voting on this an emergency platform that will do this very similar things to the pandemic treaty. Will give the Director General of the United Nations immense powers to declare emergencies, and then once this happens, it will operationalize automatically, meaning that they don't have to put their method of dealing with this emergency to a vote of the nations. The nations have already voted that the UN gets to call the shots in cases. So there's health, there's climate change, there's the grid going down, there's supply chain issues, there's major events in outer space. So they're even saying that, if you see planets colliding, they get to take over. And then they've got something that they call black swan events, which is basically anything that they couldn't think of at the time. They can basically call an emergency on any of these, and then again they will have power and control over how the nations respond to this. This is a direct destruction of our national sovereignty. Every nation has the right to be that nation and to make decisions for itself. That every nation, we elect our officials, and our officials that are elected by us are the ones that have the authority to say how we're going to handle a crisis of some sort. And so then to have these bodies above our government, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, saying, no, you have to handle it this way, that's completely unconstitutional. Our Constitution says, our government is by the people and for the people, and we have checks and balances so that we can remove bad leaders that are not leading according to what's best for us or what we want. But you can't do that with the World Health Organization. You can't do that with the United Nations. You can't remove them. They are even above our governance. And so that's not right. That is completely unconstitutional. So something I think that people should also be aware of is these 15-minute cities, which is another thing that that sounds they try to make it sound really nice. Like, wouldn't it be nice to live and work and shop and have your life within a 15-minute foot walk? You could walk everywhere. Again, how is it enforced? It's enforced through surveillance, and it's a way of stopping us if, for example, we step out of line. So let's just have the brief clip about the 15-minute cities.
A 15-minute city means basically a neighborhood where you can reach everything you need within a 15-minute foot walk, a doctor, grocery store, and so forth. However, if you now fancy another store and it does not happen to be in your neighborhood, you won't be going to that store anymore. Total control is what we're talking about. Once they decide you're no longer allowed to leave your 15-minute immediate area, they don't have to fence it in or anything. It will be done via digital ID.
With a social credit system, kind of
Something like
maintaining
that.
compliance.
Yes. And there's pilot projects already going on in Bologna. It's called the Bologna wallet, and in Vienna it's called the Vienna token. It's voluntary for now, and it's only pretty much enticing people to get some ticket for a little less or something like that to go to theater, something like that. But soon there will be a time you don't have a choice anymore. You have to have this digital green certificate, this QR code, whatever, and then they
Okay, so that clip got cut off, but you get the idea. And people should be aware that I think probably most cities in the United States have plans to become 15-minute cities. And so what does that mean? It means that they're going to enforce this by having surveillance cameras on all the corners that have facial recognition. They'll be able to track us through our cell phones and keep us in this 15-minute radius, especially if we have done something like refusing to be vaccinated or criticizing the government. Then they can clamp down and keep you within a 5-minute radius or make you stay at home. Or if you're a dissident and you actually get out there and criticize the government, like what I'm doing right now, they can paralyze you. They can make sure that you can never leave. So this again, this is a tool of totalitarian control. I'm sorry, Pastor Latasha, were you trying to say something?
Yes. Thinking about that 15-minute city model with the face recognition, how do you imagine how they will stop? Other than halting all the digital things, do you think that there may be even some physical constraint, maybe? It be that you cannot leave out of that 15-minute radius of, your safe town or what have you?
Well, okay, I don't know because it hasn't gotten to that point yet, but I can imagine this scenario. Let's say that I was a bad girl and I did not get my vaccination, and so they're punishing me. So I walk out of my house, and there's all kinds of scenarios. My phone could start, blaring, saying, this person shouldn't be here. They can connect other people's phones to my phone so that everybody can be looking at me and saying she's not supposed to be here. Obviously they're not going to be able to. I won't be able to buy anything because I've gone out when I shouldn't have gone out, and they can probably just have a notification on my phone saying go back home. You're breaking quarantine, and if you don't, then we're going to arrest you. And if you don't go back home, they can arrest you. I mean,
right.
I mean, I don't know. I just made that up right now, but it doesn't seem far-fetched to me. It seems like that's the direction that we're heading in. And this is the thing, is that like in China, I've read reports that people know how each other's scores. That somehow that they, in fact, I read a report that in some place in China, if you walk across the street and you have a bad social credit score, that they have like a big screen on the corner, and there's a picture of you with your bad credit score, and like, don't talk to this person, don't get near this person. And this is a way of making you just a pariah in your society completely. And this is the thing. This is straight out of the Chinese Communist Party textbook, which is to turn people against each other, so that, like, in China, if you have a bad social credit score, then if anybody who's your friend or who interacts with you is going to have a bad score too. Just being your friend is going to drive their scores down. So they're going to either stop being your friend or they're going to start pressuring you to get in line.
How humiliating. That's so humiliating.
Yeah, totally humiliating.
Dehumanizing. Wow.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I read a report that said that on buses in certain areas of China, you get on the bus, and if you have a bad social credit score, the screen that's at the front of the bus, your picture is on the screen at the front of the bus saying this person has a bad social credit score, and saying why, what you did wrong. Make sure no one will sit next to you and no one will even get near you. It's horrible. I can only imagine being in that situation and being abandoned by my family and my friends and my neighbors. And, I mean, that would be crushing. So it's a very effective way of keeping people in line, totalitarian control. Absolutely. All right. So I'm sure that some of your listeners have heard of Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And he's got a plan about how we all need to, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we're going to be replaced by robots. So there's going to be a problem because there's not going to be, any place for us to work. So let's just play that one, the Fourth Industrial Revolution one, Klaus Schwab.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed. Yeah, and of course this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. And offers certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. When you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. Of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications. And we have to be prepared for it, and that's what we want to do in Davos next year.
Talk about technology and how the ways it can be deployed, that contribute to growth rather than exacerbate unemployment. How will that implement itself?
It's a big question mark, because there is a fear that technology, robots, just to take one
you gain
element,
productivity from machines.
Exactly, and it replaces maybe the workforce or jobs faster than we can replace them with new jobs. Not everybody can be a robot polisher and so on, so there will be new jobs.
Okay, so according to Klaus Schwab, the fourth industrial revolution is not going to change what you do. It's going to change you through genetic editing. I mean, who knows what that's about? I'm not a scientist. It's a frightening thought, but also that we're going to be replaced by robots, and he doesn't really understand what we're all going to do, because not everybody can be a robot polisher, as he says. But his right-hand man, Yuval Noah Harari, has an idea of what we're going to do. So let's play the next clip called Yuval Noah Harari, Why So Many Humans?
In the book, if I understand it correctly, you argue that actually the amazing breakthrough that we are experiencing right now not only will potentially make our life better, but they will create, and I quote you, new classes and new class struggles, just as the Industrial Revolution did. Can you elaborate for us?
Yes, in the Industrial Revolution, we saw the creation of a new class of the urban proletariat, and much of the political and social history of the last 200 years involved what to do with this class and the new problems and opportunities. Now we see the creation of a new massive class of useless people. As computers become better and better in more and more fields, there is a distinct possibility that computers will outperform us in most tasks and will make humans redundant. And then the big political and economic question of the 21st century will be, what do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
Do you have an answer in the book?
At present, the best guess we have is keep them happy with drugs and computer games.
This is the ideology behind the fourth industrial revolution, that we are going to be replaced by robots because they can outperform us, and which is going to turn into a massive class of useless humans, all right, which they're going to handle by entertaining us with drugs and computer games. That's the future for us, according to Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, Yuval Noah Harari, who's sort of his ideological right-hand man. And does this sound like the way that God created us? I don't think so.
No, not at all.
But yeah, so Pastor Latasha, I mean.
And you're seeing little increments, of course, of all these things mounting, right? Like you can see the aggressiveness of the pharmaceutical and the drug, just the delusion of that. You can see the aggressiveness of the video games, just the whole AI world. So you can see that mounting where people are becoming very docile and very dumbed down to a lot of things, So, so you can see it happening. Right now in our society. Yes.
Yeah. So what ultimately does this mean? What does the fourth industrial revolution have to say about God? So let's get the next clip of Yuval Noah Harari. It's called Humans Have No Soul and Free Will is Over.
But some governments and corporations, for the first time in history, have the power to basically hack human beings. There is a lot of talk about hacking computers, hacking smartphones, hacking bank accounts, but the big story of our era is the ability to hack human beings. And by this I mean that if you have enough data and you have enough computing power, you can understand people better than they understand themselves, and then you can manipulate them in ways which were previously impossible. And in such a situation, the old democratic system stop functioning. We need to reinvent democracy for this new era in which humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, this, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. We need to come to terms with the fact that, no matter, again, this is where philosophy meets computer science and biology.
So this is where all of this is leading, which is human beings are not created by God in his image. We are hackable animals that once we are hacked, the government will know us better than we know ourselves, which would give the government the right to tell us what to do because they know better for us, right? And that there's no more free will, that free will is over, and that human beings have no soul. I mean, can you imagine a more anti-God ideology? You know,
that's exactly what I was thinking. This is so antichrist, so antichrist to the core. This
it is.
This is it. Wow.
This is it. This is it. I mean, I feel like we are living in, you know, Revelation and end times here.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that every single one of us was chosen by God to be in this place in this time, because he's counting on us to be his end time army, you know? So every one of us has a huge mandate to stand up to all of this. That's why I founded Anti-Globalist International. And I would urge everybody to go to antiglobalist.net. That's antiglobalist.net. Maybe you can put it in the notes or something where it's easy for people to click on, because it's being suppressed by Google. But read our manifesto, sign our manifesto. That will put you in touch with me, because then I'm going to, you know, be able to send out newsletters to you about what all the most recent developments are. But we need to stop this thing. So very shortly, at the end of this, not even the end of this month, May 27th, there's going to be the World Health Assembly in Geneva. I'm going to be going, and I have been arguing for months that the amendments to the international health regulations and the pandemic treaty must not be voted on in May, because the international health regulations, they have a rule. It's called Article 55, number 2, which says that all amendments to the international health regulations have to be disclosed and distributed to the nations of the world 4 months in advance of any vote at the World Health Assembly. So that passed on January 27th, and they're still negotiating them. They're not done. Like, it's just barely over a week before the World Health Assembly, and they're still negotiating them, which completely it makes it so that civil society cannot analyze these things and figure out what the true implications are. And so I'm arguing, and others also are arguing, that we should not, that these should not be voted upon at this World Health Assembly. And I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. So we have a Not Now campaign on Sovereignty Coalition. And I mentioned that I'm the co-chair or the co-founder of that. And then thank goodness, there were 49 senators, all of them Republican, that signed a letter to President Biden saying, number one, we don't think you should be voting on this this treaty right now. Okay, you can't vote on it until we've seen it and have had 4 months to analyze it and discuss it. Number one. And number two, if you do vote on it, it can only become valid with the advice and consent of the Senate, because the danger is that the Biden administration will just sign off on it via executive order, and that's illegal. But, you know, it's unconstitutional because this is a treaty. It can only become valid on the advice and consent of the Senate. But if we don't stand up, if we're all like Lucy and you know, the girl in the young woman in the video who just does everything the government tells her, then they'll just do it. They'll take the power because they can. So, so Can we have the next slide, which is delay, debunk, and defeat? Yeah, I feel like we are in a race against the globalists. They want to ram this pandemic treaty through, and the amendments to the international health regulations this May, because they want to, in my opinion, I believe that they want to do it because they want to do it under a Biden administration. They're worried that maybe President Trump would get reelected, and that he is considerably less amenable to the World Health Organization. In fact, he withdrew us from the World Health Organization when he was in office. But it takes a year to get out, so that by the time we would have gotten out, Biden had taken office and had put us right back in. So we need to delay this, so that will give us more time to raise awareness, like what you're doing, Pastor Latasha, by having me on. Then we can debunk it. In other words, tell people what the dangers are, and then ultimately defeat it. Because when people learn about what's the truth about this, they don't want it. So I would urge everybody go to Anti-Globalist International. That's antiglobalist.net, www.antiglobalist.net. Read and sign the manifesto. Share this video with your friends and anyone who will listen, because we've never been so close to losing our national sovereignty and our personal medical freedom. And once they're gone, it will be almost impossible to get them back.
Definitely be praying for you, and
please,
that's working with you with this measure to go before God as leaders in this fight. This is a very one world government fight, like the word they win, wise man wins souls and make disciples. So we got to get people's minds renewed and recalibrate to what is happening, so that as these things befall us, that what we don't want to lose, if we lose our natural freedom, we don't want to lose our souls.
Right.
We are very grateful. Thank you, Ms. Littlejohn, again, because I know you are a very, very busy woman for taking out your time. Thank you so much, God bless.
You're awesome. You're awesome. I'm so glad that you're doing everything that you do too.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So God bless you. We'll be in touch soon.
God bless you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on today. Ms. Reggie Littlejohn, the president of Anti-Globalist International, delivered a powerful, impactful presentation about the threat to our individual freedoms and national sovereignty. So I want to encourage you all to continue to stay prayerful, continue to fight the good fight of faith, because we cannot remain silent on this. And as Ms. Littlejohn stated, we have to delay, debunk, and defeat. And as most of us know, these things must be. These are on God's prophetic time clock, and prophecy must come to pass. And we know that the Biden administration has reversed the course. They're in full support of this global pandemic treaty, and the World Health Assembly 2024 starts May 27 in a couple of days. And there we know our individual freedoms and national sovereignty is likely to end. So again, we have to stay prayerful, and we have to continue to fight, and we have to share this information. So definitely share this video with your family and friends far and wide. And also visit antiglobalist.net. Sign the Anti-Globalist International Manifesto. Get your family and friends to sign it. Because remember, our faith, our values, our families, our children, our community, our body autonomy, our national sovereignty are all at stake. So visit antiglobalist.net. And don't forget to follow us on Rumble and all social media at Latasha H. Fields for more information and updates. And also subscribe to my newsletter at epicforchange.org. And that's EPIC, the number 4, change.org for more information as well. Thank you. I love you with the love of the Lord. And until next time, stay strong, be careful out there, and remember, continue to be louder from the bottom up.